Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We're really pleased to be here to talk to you about our experiences implementing a MAM at the CBC. Specifically, we want to share our experiences of how the adoption and implementation of our MAM has brought about significant changes to our work and our work culture at the CBC. But first, we'll just tell you a little bit about ourselves. So my name is Christine. I've been with the CBC for 20 years. I have been involved with the MAM project for about a decade as a subject matter expert in audio and video cataloging. And then I also was the MAM project coordinator for a while. And now my interactions with the MAM are a bit more remote in terms of metadata optimization. And I am currently at the CBC the manager for metadata governance.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. As some of you know me as the one who asks a lot of questions. I've been with the CBC for just over a decade, and I started out in regards to the MAM as a subject matter expert for video collections, particularly when we were beginning to migrate our video metadata and setting up our auto capture workflows. But presently, my focus is more on our diversity data, collecting, managing, and visualizing all of our content tracking diversity data. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to give you a little bit of a background on who CBC is, what we do. We'll paint a pre-MAM picture for you and then share how our MAM experience significantly improved collaboration, taxonomies, and metadata governance across our teams, our metadata, and our systems. And then we'll talk about how things have changed post-MAM implementation and our exciting plans moving forward. So let's get started. Who is the CBC? So the CBC is Canada's public broadcaster. We operate under the Canadian Broadcasting Act to educate, enlighten, and entertain Canada. And as such, we create and distribute content for talk radio, television, music, digital content on our online platforms and applications, and streaming services. Content is created in both official languages, English and French, and a segment of our specialized content in many Indigenous languages. We have bureau across the country meeting local needs in addition to our national programming. Now, just imagine how many assets we have on a daily basis and legacy, and how much metadata there is to go with all of those assets. It has been a challenge to get it all together. Needless to say, it's been a challenge, and it's also been really interesting to engage our stakeholders in very different ways than we had before as a result of implementing our MAM.
So more than a decade ago, we began our journey to do just that and implement the MAM. And at the same time, the corporation was made up of different silos, a lot of silos. There were silos not just across teams, but within teams. There were also silos across our metadata and our systems. Our teams were siloed from each other, so librarians didn't have access to technical teams when we were working on different projects related to metadata development or maintenance processes. Content creators and other metadata end users were also siloed from each other. There was no clear picture as to what was actually needed for our content and our metadata in order to be optimized, both for the content creator and then ultimately for the audience. The resulting duplication of efforts due to all these silos were evident within our content collections as well. Multiple copies of assets were kept across different systems and by different teams. So a good example is our flagship news program, The National. We had multiple copies of it on Betacam tapes across the country in different vaults. We also had multiple copies of it in digital format, in different formats, in different servers across the country. We had a separate digital file that was kept just for radio users that was accessed through a different system than the video users would access. And then furthermore, each instance contains its own metadata. And there was no standardization between the versions in terms of the metadata that was applied. And then a lot of those versions didn't even have connections to the other versions, so not everybody knew they all existed. Along with our content, our metadata was also siloed, just like in that example, lived in different databases and moved through various systems in a very transitory way. There were few metadata standards beyond our archival records, which meant there was no predictability for searching and no alignment across teams and platforms to promote discoverability. Each system had its own rules for metadata governance with respect to fields, legal lists, and taxonomies, so there was no alignment or automated metadata flow across systems. Furthermore, the metadata and the media were not housed together, which forced us to rely on UIDs to connect the assets and the information for content creators. So all of these silos around the systems containing the metadata created a variety of issues related to workflow and access. Metadata needed to be both added and validated manually. This process was a drain on our resources and limited what work could be done. Because everything was manual, access to content was at times delayed, while metadata was held up in the quality control process. Therefore, access and discoverability of content was also a multi-step process and difficult for teams working outside of libraries and archives. Somebody always had to ask somebody else to find something or when something was going to be ready.
So that's a picture of where we were at the beginning of our journey. And as we began to plan for the implementation of our MAM, we discovered that this endeavor was the key to breaking down these silos and affect real change in our work and our culture. There was more collaboration, taxonomies took on a greater role in our content, and the concept of ongoing metadata governance and continuous improvement became very much more prevalent. So collaboration was the first area where we saw changes that were evident. As we moved towards implementation, we needed to engage stakeholders in ways that we hadn't before. To understand what was needed for the MAM to be successful at the CBC, we needed to evaluate what content creators needed to discover and access the content they required to produce their stories to tell to their audiences. The first step was to engage groups sitting in different silos and amass different information to be used for a needs analysis. We conducted facilitated sessions and value propositions, exercises to determine what each group considered to be critical for their success. This information aided us in our decision-making for the MAM design and its rollout, not to mention that it promoted buy-in and engagement for the people that were going to end up using the MAM. These engagement sessions took a wide variety of stakeholders beyond our content creators. We looked at technical teams and other support teams to ensure we had a more holistic view of what we could use our MAM to do. For example, we began ongoing collaboration with our scheduling department to automatically pull metadata from their systems into the MAM to create the base records. Work continued as we made changes to the metadata model, and consultation continued so that there was consistent and constant alignment. I can't stress that enough, consistent and constant alignment. This was a team we did not previously have a relationship with, but this relationship and many others have continued beyond the rollout of the MAM. Because of these relationships, teams across different departments now include our team to participate in different initiatives relating to the MAM, but also in relation to other content management systems and other metadata needs.
So after starting the collaboration between teams, we began to investigate the possibility for collaboration in the creation and the usage of our metadata. Through our conversations with stakeholders, it became clear that we no longer needed to manually recreate metadata for searchability and discoverability, but rather we could leverage the existing metadata upstream from other content systems and have it populate our MAM. The collaboration with other teams allowed us to finally have our content and metadata together in one place where it could be accessed by anyone with a MAM account. This easy access to the collection further perpetuated the collaboration across teams and platforms, as there was now an even playing field in terms of access. Teams working across different platforms could share more easily and quickly. The collaboration of our metadata has become a continuous improvement process at the CBC, which is a relatively new process at the CBC overall across all departments. There is an ongoing dialogue between MAM users and librarians regarding what metadata needs are not being met, and it's also an ongoing dialogue between librarians and the stewards of our other systems that may or may not connect to the MAM about their metadata needs. We're also looking towards emerging needs as we adapt to changing technologies and the shifting media landscape. The focus of these collaborations is essentially functionality and optimization. In terms of functionality, we're looking for things like search and access regardless of the system. So we ask questions like, is the content easy to discover? And if it isn't, why not? What metadata is actually missing? Is the content easily moved into other systems for editing and presentation? And if it isn't, why not? Is the problem with the system or with the metadata moving between the system? Diagnosing what the problem is helps us solve it more effectively. In terms of optimization, we want to ensure that we are using our metadata to its full potential. Therefore, we're looking at what metadata is available across all systems and trying to find ways to leverage the metadata we've learned is valuable to content creators and other stakeholders, such as broadcast lineups, playlists, transcripts, and taxonomy tags. We also work with various stakeholders to ensure that the metadata moving across our ecosystem is the best quality that it can be and is automated as much as possible without compromising on that quality. The automation allows us to gather more material than before with less manual effort and provide more options to content creators. The use of APIs has given us flexibility when moving that data in and out of the MAM. Unlike our pre-MAM state, our systems are collaborating to move our content and our metadata more efficiently. Because the systems are connected, we can leverage out our metadata earlier in the content lifecycle, often right at the source of content capture. This increases the metadata integrity, as opposed to in the past when we would have a library and try to track down what something was and then copy and paste it or guess. Sometimes we can go right to the source and automatically capture that. As the content and the metadata are flowing through the systems in a more automated way, we've mitigated the duplication of work. This means less copying and pasting, as I said, and more time focused on adding other metadata like taxonomy terms.
So speaking of taxonomy, like never before, as Christina mentioned, taxonomies are playing a significant role in how we describe our content. This is true in populating metadata in our MAM and thinking about initiatives outside of our MAM. In order to maintain our taxonomies and keep them relevant, we need to collaborate with a variety of stakeholders. I can't stress that enough because we want to make sure that our taxonomies are inclusive and to keep them relevant. And that all began with our MAM, and we are now moving those taxonomies across all different content systems. But that really started to become prevalent when we started thinking about implementing our MAM. As the first phase of MAM was rolled out, we began collaboration between French and English librarians to ensure that the taxonomies were meeting the needs of both sides in the corporation. The taxonomy was designed to be bilingual and aligned where possible. In areas that there was divergence, we collaborated and to ensure that there was transparency regarding all decisions and documentation regarding usage, and we'll talk a little bit more about governance a little bit later. But that was just the first step. From there, we began to work with other teams to create custom taxonomies because one taxonomy is not going to work. One single taxonomy does not meet all of your stakeholders' needs. We want to make sure that we can assist with the unique needs of each team, which is what we did. And this removes the guesswork for the content creators and the stakeholders about which terms to use and increases the consistency across our systems. For example, our Indigenous Languages Archive project is a cataloging audio content project where catalogers are cataloging audio in a number of Indigenous languages. The project struggled to use our taxonomy, which was based in Western culture, to describe their content. Through collaboration, we worked with the cataloging team on this project to develop a custom taxonomy that met the needs of their unique content and their communities, and in turn ensured that our taxonomies were inclusive. Another example of teams collaborating over taxonomies that's not exclusive to our MAM, but fundamental in our MAM, is the development of the taxonomy for use in our diversity inclusion initiatives. We have a taxonomy that has been developed in consultation, again, with different stakeholders and used in different systems for different projects. The project or the system might be different, but the terms and universal, providing clarity and better access around the content. The improvement of our taxonomies has allowed our organization, allowed us to organize our content and our metadata in very different ways. This improvement to our metadata has many benefits, including increases discoverability, allows for easier retrieval by content creators and by audiences. So it's not just for content creators, it's actually for their stakeholders, which is our audience as well. Provides insights and metrics regarding usage, which in turn improves and assists editorial decisions. and informs taxonomists in the continuous improvement process, again, in keeping our taxonomy relevant and useful. It increases alignment and allows for better flow between systems, both for the content and for the metadata, and enables the success of other initiatives aimed at audience engagement, such as personalization efforts and automation. Our taxonomies across the MAM and other systems enables content creators to have a more seamless creation process and provides easier access to material, which is what we want. We want the content creators to focus on creating the content, not finding the content. And in order to maintain this alignment of taxonomies across systems, an initiative has grown in collaboration across several teams to build an aggregate API that will link all of our systems using taxonomy to our taxonomy tool in order to ensure that all changes are automatically reflected in all systems. So it's that cascading effect of changing it at the single source of truth, and then it goes out to all the systems that has that metadata. This alignment ensures, thank you, easier collaboration across teams using a common language.
So the practice of metadata and taxonomy alignment naturally brings us to my favorite topic, the practice of governance. Systematic governance is relatively new to the CBC because we had all those silos. There was never an overarching approach to governance, and in some cases, no governance at all. Instead, it was done in pockets, inconsistently. And spoiler alert, we still don't have an all-encompassing governance structure or plan. But because of the lessons we've learned implementing our MAM, we have put ourselves on the path of achieving one. Our first step has been to engage teams in the governance process so that we can be more reactive and flexible to changing needs. Stakeholder participation in discussions about governance has increased overall engagement and gives us a forum to demonstrate the benefits of metadata and metadata standards. Engaging different teams and people from different roles enables more informed decision-making because it provides different perspectives, it promotes shared understanding, it increases access to bigger picture metadata strategies, and it raises understanding of how metadata is created and distributed all along the life cycle. Integral to the conversations arising from team engagement in the documentation is the documentation of practices and decisions, which is also something that is relatively new to some of our teams. To be more rigorous in our efforts to govern our work with metadata in the MAM and our other systems, it is vital to have that documentation that eliminates confusion and serves as the foundation for the ongoing continuous improvement conversations. Pre-MAM, there was no centralized practice for metadata or systems governance. Practices were different across all the systems, the databases, and the teams. Additions, changes, edits, and deletions were made ad hoc, may or may not be documented. Ownership of a system or a collection of metadata was relegated to one team with little collaboration with our content creators and other teams. So our work on the MAM rollout led to the creation of a taxonomy governance committee with participation from both French and English services. And that committee's mandate is to guide how the MAM will work and to seek metadata alignment where possible and communication regarding other initiatives related to the MAM. This group has served as a trailblazer for emerging work across the corporation building metadata governance models, which our team is now picking up and trying to do more of. Governance models that can be tailored to the needs of a different system or group are possible, but collaboration and documentation are foundational to each initiative. Our lessons learned from setting up governance for our MAM has opened up many opportunities for us to participate in governance of other content systems and workflows. Building a governance model is an essential point of consideration when working with any metadata project or policy, not just with a MAM or a DAM. And governance work has led to consistent standards, improved access to content, and it has also provided valuable data for decision-making when we're building and upgrading systems and when we're planning our programming.
So all those years ago, we launched our MAM on a journey to achieve a specific set of goals and implement a MAM. Today, we are still fine-tuning and honing our MAM, but we are also using the lessons learned to improve workflows and practices across the corporation. We've discovered that a MAM is not only a content management system, but it's also a tool to bring together teams, systems, and metadata, and to give easy access to the content for all of our users. At the CBC, our MAM has inspired many changes and provided great opportunities for effective and ongoing change management and collaboration, something you'll need when you're implementing a MAM. Change management is a critical aspect of that. Among those changes and opportunities are, again, we're going to keep talking about breaking down the silos because that's really what you need to do. So we break down the silos. We improve a wider spread of metadata standards, which gives our data more integrity. The governance of our metadata within the MAM and other systems has increased, and beyond MAM as well. Stronger taxonomies connect systems and content, but it also connects our content with our audience, so we're exploring those. And the automation of processes with the use of metadata and APIs to improve the flow between systems. Beyond that, we have learned a lot about ourselves and our organization, and are able to effectively introduce and manage that change. It's not particular to the DAM or the MAM. There'll be change initiatives no matter what new tool comes in. To create engagement, the most important thing is to create engagement. Get buy-in first. The people come first. Then experiment, try different things, but keep the dialogue going, and as much diversity of dialogue you can get from as many different teams as possible. Even if you think that there may not be a stakeholder, they probably are. So talk to everybody you can, and continuously. It's not a one-stop shop. You have to continuously talking. The ongoing experimentation and continuous improvement process plays a critical role in achieving our mandate to inform, enlighten, and entertain Canadians.
So looking ahead, we have a lot of plans for our MAM and beyond. Some of the initiatives that we're currently working on or are looking to implement include implementing metadata governance models for all content systems, not just our MAM, using our taxonomy to leverage insights into our content's performance, using our metadata to track our efforts to create more inclusive content, using our taxonomy to create personalized experiences, and leveraging out our metadata to automate more of our routine work where possible. We're currently at a place at the CBC where we feel like we have all the tools now that we need to pursue these initiatives that in the past were ideas that we used to talk about. We would have blue sky sessions and say, I really want to do this, and wouldn't know how to do it. And we're at that point now where we feel like the lessons that we learned while we were implementing our MAM contributed to allowing us to be at a place right now where some of these things are not just blue sky, they can actually be a reality to us. And I think that's pretty much our journey so far in a nutshell. So thank you to all of you for taking the time to come today to listen to us. We hope you found it interesting and maybe could relate in some way. It's time for questions, but if you don't have a question now but you think of one later, feel free to contact us anytime.